The heavy metal door slammed shut behind Maya Richardson, and the sound echoed through the concrete hallway like a final judgment. She stood there in her orange jumpsuit, handcuffs still biting into her wrists as the intake officer processed her paperwork with barely a glance. This was Redwood Federal Correctional Facility, and Maya was now just another number in the system. Inmate 847-2193. The officer, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, flipped through Maya's file without much interest. If she'd actually read it, she might have noticed the heavily redacted sections. She might have seen the 12 years of military service, the commendations, the classified operations across 3 continents, but she didn't read it. Nobody did. To everyone at Redwood, Maya was just another woman who'd made a terrible mistake. That mistake, according to the courts, was killing 3 men outside a bar in downtown Seattle. Maya remembered that night like it was yesterday. The rain had been coming down hard, and she'd been walking to her car when she saw them dragging a young girl into an alley. The girl couldn't have been more than 16, and the look of terror on her face told Maya everything she needed to know. What happened next was instinct, years of combat training taking over before her brain could catch up. When it was over, 3 men were dead, and Maya was standing in the rain with her hands shaking. Self-defense, she'd told the police. The girl confirmed her story. But somehow key evidence disappeared. Witnesses changed their testimonies. The prosecutor painted Maya as a violent woman with military training who'd overreacted to a situation. The jury took less than 4 hours to convict her of manslaughter. 15 years. Now here she was, being led through the cold corridors of D Block by a guard who chewed gum loudly and offered no conversation. Maya kept her head down, but her eyes were working overtime. She'd been trained to assess threats, to map out environments, to find weaknesses in any system. Old habits die hard, even when you're trying to be invisible. The common area came into view, and Maya saw her new reality. Women clustered in groups, their body language telling stories of hierarchy and power. Some played cards at metal tables bolted to the floor. Others stood against walls, watching everyone with cold calculation. The air smelled like industrial cleaner, stale coffee, and something else Maya couldn't quite place. Fear, maybe, or rage. Probably both. One group stood out immediately. 5 women near the far corner, spread out just enough to seem casual, but positioned with clear tactical awareness. They wore their jumpsuits differently, rolled at the waist or sleeves, small acts of defiance that marked them as untouchable. The other inmates gave them space, lots of it. The woman at the center was tall and lean, with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing. She was watching Maya with the kind of interest a predator shows when new prey wanders into its territory. This, Maya understood without being told, was Rochelle Martinez. Everyone called her Rock, and Rock ran D Block. The guard brought Maya to her cell on the 2nd tier. The door was already open, and inside an elderly woman sat on the lower bunk reading a paperback with a broken spine. She looked up as Maya entered, and her face broke into a warm smile that seemed completely out of place in this concrete tomb. "Well, hello there," the woman said, setting down her book. "I'm Dottie. Looks like we're going to be roommates." Maya nodded, managing a small smile. "Maya, pretty name. Welcome to the Redwood Hotel. The accommodations are terrible, but the company can be interesting." Dottie's eyes twinkled with humor that seemed impossible to maintain in a place like this. "That's your bunk up there. Not much, but it's yours." Over the next few hours, Dottie filled Maya in on the basics. When to line up for meals, which showers to use, which guards would hassle you, and which ones would leave you alone. But mostly she talked about the Viper sisters. "That's what they call themselves," Dottie explained, her voice dropping low. "Rock's crew. They've been running this block for 3 years now. Drugs, cigarettes, favors from guards, they control it all, and they maintain control through fear. Violence," Maya said quietly. It wasn't a question. Smart girl. Every few months they pick someone new, someone who needs to be made an example of. They beat them bad enough that everyone else remembers their place. Dottie's hands trembled slightly as she spoke. "I've been lucky so far. Kept my head down, didn't cause trouble. But luck runs out eventually." Maya listened, filing away every detail. She'd seen groups like the Vipers before in different contexts. Tribal militias in Afghanistan operated the same way. Control through calculated brutality. The trick was staying off their radar entirely. That first week, Maya became a ghost. She spoke only when necessary, kept her eyes down during meals, and spent most of her free time in the cell reading or doing quiet exercises. Push-ups, sit-ups, nothing that would draw attention. She missed her daughter Zara with an ache that kept her awake at night. 8 years old, living with Maya's sister now, probably wondering why her mom had to go away. The appeal hearing was scheduled for 3 months out. Maya's lawyer, a public defender named Vincent Chen, had found new evidence that might overturn her conviction. Witnesses who'd been intimidated into silence were coming forward, but Chen had been clear that Maya needed a spotless record inside. Any trouble, any fights, any disciplinary actions would destroy their case. So Maya stayed invisible, even when J.J. Thompson, Rock's second in command, started paying attention to her. J.J. was stocky and muscular, with a scar running down her left cheek and knuckles that showed years of fighting. She'd walk past Maya's cell slowly, looking in with a smile that promised nothing good. "Fresh meat," J.J. said one evening, stopping at the cell door. "You're that quiet one. The one who thinks keeping her head down will save her." Maya didn't respond, didn't even look up from her book. This only made J.J. laugh. "Rock's noticed you. That's not good for you, sweetness. We've got plans." After J.J. left, Dottie sat on her bunk looking worried. "Maya, they're going to come for one of us. Probably me. I refused to do something for them last week." "What did they want?" Maya asked. "Doesn't matter now. What matters is they don't forget and they don't forgive." Dottie's voice cracked slightly. "I'm an old woman with diabetes. I won't survive what they do." Maya felt something twist in her chest. This was exactly what she couldn't do. Getting involved, playing hero, it would cost her everything. Her appeal, her chance to see Zara again, her entire future. The smart play was to stay out of it no matter what happened to Dottie. But as she lay in her bunk that night staring at the concrete ceiling, Maya couldn't stop thinking about the girl in the alley. The one she'd saved, even though saving her had cost Maya her freedom. Some instincts went deeper than survival. Some lines, once you drew them, you couldn't uncross. The days crawled by and the tension in D Block grew thicker. Other inmates could feel it coming, the way animals sense a storm. The Vipers were planning something, and everyone knew it. Maya watched Dottie grow more nervous, more withdrawn. The old woman's hand shook when she ate, and she stopped making jokes. 3 weeks after Maya arrived at Redwood, she was sitting in her cell when she heard the commotion start. Loud voices in the common area, the sound of something crashing. Then, cutting through everything else, she heard Dottie scream. Maya's body went rigid. Every muscle tensed, her heart rate spiked, and her hands curled into fists. She knew that scream. It was the sound of someone being hurt badly, someone who couldn't defend themselves. For 30 seconds, Maya sat frozen on her bunk. 30 seconds of warfare inside her own head. Think of Zara. Think of the appeal. Think of everything you'll lose. But Dottie screamed again, and this time it was Maya's name. A plea for help from someone who'd shown her nothing but kindness in this hellhole. The war inside Maya's head ended. The Navy SEAL, who'd spent 12 years running into danger instead of away from it, made the decision. Some things mattered more than safety. Some people were worth fighting for, even when the cost was everything. Maya stood up, her body shifting into a different mode entirely. The quiet, invisible inmate disappeared. In her place was something the Viper sisters had never encountered before. She walked out of her cell and headed toward the showers, where the screaming was coming from. And with each step, Maya Richardson stopped being a prisoner and became what she'd always been. A weapon. The shower area was at the end of a long corridor, away from the main cameras. Maya had noticed this during her first week, filed it away as a blind spot. Now she understood why it existed. Some blind spots were created on purpose, paid for with contraband or cash. The guards knew exactly what happened in places they couldn't see, and they'd chosen not to see it. As Maya walked down that corridor, time seemed to slow down. Her breathing steadied, her vision sharpened, and years of training kicked in automatically. She could hear everything now. Dottie's labored breathing, the shuffle of feet on wet concrete, someone laughing, enjoying the violence. 5 distinct voices, maybe 6. When Maya rounded the corner into the shower area, she took in the scene instantly. Dottie was on the ground, curled up, trying to protect her head. JJ stood over her with a sock full of something heavy, probably batteries or soap bars. 3 other Vipers formed a loose circle, blocking any escape route. One of them held a sharpened piece of metal, what inmates called a shank. Another woman stood at the entrance as a lookout. The lookout saw Maya first and smiled. "Lost, new girl?" "This ain't your business," Maya didn't respond. She was calculating distances, angles, threat levels. The woman with the shank was the most dangerous. JJ was the leader here, the one who needed to go down first to break their coordination. The others would hesitate once their command structure collapsed. JJ looked up from Dottie and grinned. Well. The quiet one grew a spine. You here to beg for Granny? Maybe offer to take her place? Let her go, Maya said quietly. This is your only chance to walk away. The Vipers found this hilarious. One of them, a woman with teardrop tattoos under her eye, doubled over laughing. Did you hear that? She's giving us chances. Girl, do you know where you are? Do you know who we are? Maya took one step forward. Her hands hung loose at her sides, relaxed but ready. I know you're making a mistake. JJ's grin faded. Something in Maya's voice and her stance registered as wrong. But JJ had a reputation to maintain, and backing down from fresh meat would be worse than losing a fight. Take her, she told the others. Make it hurt. Two Vipers moved toward Maya simultaneously, one from each side. This was basic pack tactics, overwhelmed through numbers and angles. It worked against most people. But Maya wasn't most people. The woman on her left reached her first, throwing a wild haymaker. Maya sidestepped, used the woman's momentum against her, and guided her face first into the concrete wall. Not hard enough to cause serious damage, but hard enough to take her out of the fight. The woman crumpled, conscious but dazed. The second woman was smarter, coming in low, trying to grab Maya around the waist. Maya brought her knee up, caught the woman square in the chest, and drove her backward. Before she could recover, Maya delivered a precise strike to the solar plexus that left her gasping for air and unable to fight. 5 seconds. Two opponents down. The shower area went silent except for the sound of water dripping from a broken shower head. The remaining Vipers stared at Maya with new eyes. The lookout abandoned her post, moving into the room to join the fight. The woman with the shank gripped it tighter, circling to get a better angle. JJ's face had gone from amused to furious. She dropped the weighted sock and pulled out her own shank. This one made from a sharpened toothbrush handle with a razor blade melted into the tip. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, she hissed. Maya's voice remained calm. You're the third person this month who's told me that. How'd it work out for the others? JJ lunged forward with the shank aiming for Maya's midsection. The attack was fast, practiced. JJ had done this before, but Maya had trained against knife attacks from operators who did this for a living. She twisted, caught JJ's wrist, and applied pressure to a nerve cluster. JJ's hand went numb instantly, the shank clattering to the wet floor. Before JJ could process what happened, Maya swept her legs out from under her and controlled her descent, so she wouldn't crack her skull on the concrete. But she made sure JJ's wrist bent at an angle that would keep her out of the fight. The snap echoed in the shower area. JJ screamed, clutching her broken wrist. The other Vipers froze, caught between attacking and running. They'd never seen anyone move like Maya just did. It wasn't prison fighting, wild and angry. This was something else entirely. Something surgical. The woman with the shank made her decision. She rushed Maya, slashing in a pattern that showed she'd trained with blades before. But Maya had disarmed Taliban fighters in pitch-black rooms. This was daylight, and her opponent telegraphed every move. Maya waited for the right moment, stepped inside the woman's guard, and applied a joint lock that forced her to drop the weapon. Then she swept the woman's legs and guided her down to the ground, applying just enough pressure to keep her there without causing permanent damage. The last two Vipers looked at each other, then at Maya, then at their fallen comrades. One of them was the woman with the teardrop tattoos. She held up her hands. We're done. We're done. Get them out of here, Maya said quietly. And get medical for this one. She gestured to JJ, who was going into shock from the pain of her broken wrist. But before anyone could move, new voices echoed down the corridor. Guards, finally responding to the situation they'd been paid to ignore. Captain Wade Harris led the team, a black man in his 50s who'd spent 20 years in corrections. He took in the scene with sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. 5 Vipers down or injured. One elderly inmate curled on the floor but breathing, and Maya Richardson standing in the center of it all, not a mark on her, breathing steady, looking like she could do this all day. Harris had read Maya's file. Actually read it, every unredacted word and what he could guess about the redacted parts. He knew exactly what he was looking at, and he knew this was going to change everything at Redwood. Everybody down on the ground, Harris ordered. Now. The Vipers complied quickly. Maya helped Dottie to her feet first, making sure the old woman could stand. Only then did she kneel, placing her hands behind her head without being told. Professional, calm, like she'd been through this drill 1,000 times. Medical to D-block showers. Harris spoke into his radio. Multiple injuries, possible broken bones. And get the warden. She needs to see this. As they waited, other inmates started gathering at the corridor entrance drawn by the commotion. Word was already spreading through D-block, growing with each retelling. The new girl had taken down 5 Vipers by herself. The quiet one who kept her head down had destroyed JJ and her crew in less than a minute. Across the common area, Rock watched through the window of the upper tier. She'd orchestrated the attack on Dottie, knew it was happening, had approved it, but she hadn't anticipated this. Nobody had. Rock's mind was already working through the implications. This wasn't just a fight. This was a challenge to her authority, to the Viper's control of D-block. Every inmate who'd been afraid of them was now watching, wondering if the power structure had just shifted. But more than that, Rock was curious. She'd been in prison for 8 years, had seen hundreds of fights, and she'd never witnessed anyone move the way Maya just did. This wasn't street fighting or even the brutal efficiency of prison combat. This was military training, special operations level stuff. Rock pulled out a contraband cell phone, one of several she kept hidden throughout the block. She had connections on the outside, people who owed her favors, people who could dig up information. She typed out a simple message asking for everything they could find on Maya Richardson, then waited. The medical team arrived, treating JJ's broken wrist first, then checking the other injured Vipers. Dottie was helped onto a stretcher despite her protests that she could walk. She reached out to Maya as they took her past. "Thank you," Dottie whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you." Maya just nodded, her expression unreadable. But inside she was screaming. What had she done? 3 months until her appeal, and she'd just been involved in a major incident. Vincent, her lawyer, was going to lose his mind. The prosecutor would use this against her, paint her as violent and unstable. Everything she'd sacrificed might be for nothing. Captain Harris approached Maya after the others had been taken away. He crouched down so they were at eye level, studying her carefully. 12 years, right? He said quietly. Navy, special operations. Maya met his eyes but said nothing. You just became the most talked about inmate in Redwood. Harris continued. In about an hour, every gang in this facility is going to know what happened here. Some will fear you, some will want to test you. And Rock, she's not going to let this slide. I was defending someone who couldn't defend herself, Maya said. I know. The cameras were down, but we both know that wasn't an accident. And we both know you had every right to do what you did. Harris sighed heavily. But rights don't mean much in here. You just painted a target on your back, and it's a target the size of Texas. He stood up, gesturing for another guard to help Maya to her feet. I'm putting you in your cell for now while we sort this out. The warden's going to want to talk to you, and I'm going to recommend you accept protective custody. No, Maya said immediately. That'll destroy my appeal. The prosecutor will say I started this, that I'm so dangerous I need isolation. Harris looked at her with something like respect. Then you better be ready for what's coming. 'Cause Rock's not done with you. Not even close. They walked Maya back to her cell past dozens of staring inmates. Some looked afraid. Others looked impressed. A few looked hungry, like they'd found new prey to challenge. Maya kept her head up this time, not hiding anymore. There was no point. Invisibility was no longer an option. As her cell door locked behind her, Maya sat on her bunk and put her head in her hands. She thought about Zara, about her sister's last letter describing Zara's school play, about the drawing Zara had sent of the two of them holding hands under a rainbow. Maya had done what she had to do. She'd saved Dottie's life, maybe prevented her death, but the cost was going to be enormous. The whole prison knew about her now, and somewhere out there, Rock was planning her next move. The war had just begun. Warden Patricia Collins had been running Redwood Federal Correctional Facility for 6 years, and she thought she'd seen everything. Gang violence, riots, corruption among her staff. She'd dealt with it all. But as she sat in her office watching the security footage from the shower area incident, she realized she'd never seen anything quite like this. The footage had been reviewed 3 times already. Each time, Collins found herself more unsettled. Maya Richardson moved through those 5 attackers like water flowing around rocks. No wasted motion, no hesitation. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like watching a predator at the top of the food chain. Captain Harris stood beside her desk, waiting. He'd worked with Collins long enough to let her process things at her own pace. Finally, she looked up at him. "Tell me what I'm looking at, Wade." Harris pulled out Maya's file and opened it to a page covered in black redaction marks. Maya Richardson, 34 years old, enlisted in the Navy at 22. Made it through SEAL training, which about 90% of candidates wash out of. Spent the next 12 years doing things we're not cleared to know about. Special operations, Collins said. The kind that don't officially exist. Multiple combat tours, counterterrorism, hostage rescue. All redacted, but you can read between the lines. Harris flipped to another page. Then 3 years ago, she kills 3 men outside a bar in Seattle. Claims self-defense, says they were trafficking a teenage girl. The girl backs up her story, but somehow the evidence disappears. Prosecution makes her look like a violent woman with combat training who went too far. Collins leaned back in her chair. You think she was telling the truth? I think someone with her training could have subdued those men without killing them if she'd wanted to. The fact that she killed them tells me she saw something that required lethal force. Harris closed the file. I think she's exactly who she says she is. Someone who tried to save a girl and got crucified for it. And now she's in my prison taking down gang members like they're amateurs. Because they are amateurs, compared to her. Harris moved to the window overlooking the yard. We've got a problem, Patricia. Rock Martinez runs D-Block through fear and violence. Maya just proved that fear means nothing when you're facing someone with real training. Every inmate in this facility is going to hear about this. Some will see opportunity. Others will see a threat that needs eliminating. Collins understood what he wasn't saying. The balance of power at Redwood had just shifted and nobody knew where it would settle. What do we know about Rock's response? She's being quiet. Too quiet. Her crew got humiliated. Her second-in-command has a broken wrist and she hasn't made a sound. That worries me more than if she was out there making threats. The phone on Collins's desk buzzed. Her assistant's voice came through the speaker. Warden Maya Richardson is here for her interview. Collins exchanged a look with Harris. Send her in. Maya entered the office with a guard on each side, though she didn't need the escort. She moved calmly, hands visible, posture respectful but not submissive. She'd been in front of commanding officers before, knew how to carry herself. Sit down, Richardson, Collins said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. The guards positioned themselves by the door as Maya sat. For a long moment, Collins just studied her. Maya looked tired, worried even, but there was something underneath that. Steel. Discipline. The kind of person who'd do what needed doing regardless of the cost. You want to tell me what happened in that shower area? Collins asked. I defended an elderly inmate who was being attacked by 5 others. I used the minimum force necessary to stop the threat and prevent serious injury. Minimum force, Collins repeated. You broke one woman's wrist and she came at me with a weapon. I disarmed her and controlled the situation. The alternative was letting her stab me or continue beating a 68-year-old diabetic. Maya's voice remained level, factual. I made the choice that preserved the most lives and prevented the most harm. Harris spoke up from his position by the window. You have an appeal hearing in 3 months. You know this incident is going to impact that. Something flickered across Maya's face. Pain maybe, or fear. I know, so why do it? Collins asked. Why risk everything for someone you barely know? Maya was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. My daughter is 8 years old. Her name is Zara. She's living with my sister right now because I'm in here. Every night I think about what I'm teaching her through my actions. And I realize that if I let someone get hurt when I could stop it, just to protect my appeal, then what kind of person am I? What kind of mother? The honesty in her voice caught Collins off guard. This wasn't someone making excuses or playing games. This was someone who'd made an impossible choice and was willing to live with the consequences. Your lawyer is going to be furious, Collins said. Vincent will understand. Eventually. Maya's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. He's a good man. He knows why I did what I did. Collins made her decision. I'm not putting you in protective custody. You'd lose your appeal chance, and frankly, I believe you were defending yourself and another inmate. But I am moving you to a different cell, away from the Viper's main territory, and Captain Harris is assigning additional patrols to D-Block. That won't stop them, Maya said quietly. No, Collins agreed. It won't, which is why I need you to understand something, Richardson. You've got skills that 99% of the people in this facility don't have, but skills only go so far when you're outnumbered and surrounded. Rock Martinez has been running operations in this prison for years. She's smart, she's patient, and she doesn't forgive. Whatever comes next, it's going to be bigger than a fight in a shower. Maya nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you just declared war on the most dangerous gang in my prison to save one old woman. That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. It's both, Maya said simply, but I'd do it again. Collins dismissed her, watching as the guards escorted Maya back to D Block. Once the door closed, she turned to Harris. I want eyes on Rock and her crew 24/7. I want to know every conversation, every visitor, every piece of contraband that moves through their hands. Something's coming, Wade, I can feel it. Harris nodded grimly. Already on it. Meanwhile, 3 tiers below, Rock was getting the information she'd requested. Her contact on the outside had come through, sending a detailed message about Maya Richardson's background. As Rock read it on her hidden phone, her expression went from curious to calculating to something almost like respect. Navy SEAL. 12 years of classified operations. Expert in close quarters combat, counterterrorism, and high-value target extraction. The file even included a note about a mission in Somalia, where Maya had taken down an entire terrorist cell by herself when her team was compromised. But the most interesting part was the Seattle incident. Rock's contact had dug deeper than the public records. Those 3 men Maya killed weren't random criminals. They were part of a trafficking network that had connections to politicians, businessmen, and law enforcement. Maya had stumbled onto something big, and someone with power had made sure she paid for it. Rock sat back thinking. This changed everything. Maya Richardson wasn't just some tough woman who got lucky in a fight. She was a trained operator who'd been screwed over by the system. That made her dangerous in ways Rock could use. But first she had to break her. Had to prove to everyone in Redwood that even someone with Maya's skills couldn't stand against the Vipers. Reputation was everything in prison. If Rock let this slide, she'd lose control. Other gangs would smell weakness and move in. She called a meeting with her remaining lieutenants, the ones who hadn't been in the shower area. They gathered in a utility closet on the 3rd tier, away from cameras and guards. We're going to hit her, Rock said without preamble, but not the way we went after the old lady. That was sloppy. This needs to be planned, coordinated. We need to make Maya Richardson disappear in a way that sends a message. A woman named Kelsey, who handled the Vipers' drug operations, spoke up. The guards are watching her now. Harris has his people all over D Block. Then we go bigger, Rock said. We stage a riot. Full lockdown situation, chaos everywhere, guards spread thin. In the confusion, we take her out permanently. Make it look like she got caught in the violence. That's ambitious, said another lieutenant. A quiet woman named Fox who'd done time for computer fraud. We'd need to coordinate with other blocks, get weapons in, bribe the right people. I've got connections in B and C blocks. We can make this happen. Rock pulled out a small notebook, flipping to a page covered in neat handwriting. But we need insurance. Something that guarantees Maya doesn't see this coming. What kind of insurance? Kelsey asked. Rock smiled coldly. She's got a daughter, 8 years old, living in Seattle with her aunt. I've got people on the outside who can apply pressure. Let Maya know that if she tries anything smart, if she goes to the guards or the warden, her kid suffers. The room went quiet. Even among career criminals, threatening children was crossing a line. But Rock's expression made it clear this wasn't up for debate. 1 week, Rock said. That's how long we have to set this up. Get the word out to our allies in the other blocks. Start moving weapons and supplies into position. And someone get me a way to contact Maya directly. I want her to know what's coming. Want her to feel the fear building. Back in her new cell, Maya was trying to process everything that had happened. The fight itself didn't bother her. She'd been in worse situations, faced longer odds. But the look on Dottie's face when they'd taken her to medical, the gratitude mixed with guilt that haunted her. Her new cellmate was a young woman named Bree, serving time for drug charges. She'd been quiet since Maya arrived, probably warned to keep her distance. The whole prison knew about the shower fight by now, and everyone was choosing sides or staying neutral. Maya lay on her bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Zara. Her sister had visiting hours next week, and she'd promised to bring Zara. Maya didn't know how she was going to explain any of this to an 8-year-old. How do you tell your daughter that you risked your freedom, your future together, to save someone else? A small piece of paper slid under the cell door. Maya sat up, watching as it stopped in the middle of the floor. She climbed down from her bunk and picked it up, unfolding it carefully. The message was short, written in neat handwriting. Your daughter is beautiful. Would be a shame if something happened to her. Stay in your cell, keep quiet, and maybe she stays safe. Fight back and you'll never see her again. Maya's blood went cold. Her hands started shaking, not from fear but from rage so intense it felt like fire in her veins. They were threatening Zara, her baby girl, the only thing in this world that mattered. For several long minutes, Maya stood there, the note clenched in her fist. Every instinct screamed at her to find Rock, to end this threat permanently. But that was exactly what they wanted. They wanted her emotional, desperate, making mistakes. Maya forced herself to breathe, to think tactically. This was psychological warfare, meant to break her before the real attack came. And it was working. The fear she felt for Zara was overwhelming, drowning out everything else. She needed help. Real help. From someone outside the prison who could protect Zara while Maya dealt with the threat inside. Maya called for the guard, requesting to make her one weekly phone call. 20 minutes later, she was in the phone booth dialing her sister's number with trembling fingers. When Teresa answered, Maya could hear Zara playing in the background, laughing about something, completely unaware of the danger. Teresa, Maya said quietly, we need to talk, and you need to listen very carefully. The riot started on a Tuesday during lunch service, exactly 1 week after Maya had received the threatening note. She'd been expecting it, had felt the tension building like pressure before a storm. The other inmates felt it too. Conversations were quieter, people moved in tighter groups, and the guards walked their rounds with hands closer to their batons. Maya sat at a corner table in the cafeteria, her back to the wall, watching everything. She'd barely slept in days, knowing something was coming but not knowing when or how. Captain Harris had increased patrols, but that only did so much. In a place like Redwood, if someone wanted to hurt you badly enough, they'd find a way. The fight started near the serving line, 2 women from different gangs arguing over something that didn't matter. But Maya recognized it for what it was, theater. The women were putting on a show, escalating fast, drawing attention from the guards. Within seconds, other inmates joined in, not because they cared about the fight, but because this was the signal. All hell broke loose. Tables flipped over. Trays went flying. Women who'd been sitting peacefully moments ago were suddenly throwing punches, screaming, adding to the chaos. The guards tried to respond, calling for backup, but the riot spread faster than they could contain it. Maya stayed at her table, watching the patterns in the chaos. This wasn't random violence. It was coordinated. Groups of inmates were moving with purpose, blocking corridors, keeping guards occupied. This was exactly what Rock had promised, a full lockdown situation where Maya would be vulnerable. The alarm sounded, a piercing wail that meant every cell door in the facility would automatically lock. Inmates not in their cells would be trapped wherever they were until the guards could restore order. Maya knew she had maybe 2 minutes before those doors sealed. She stood up and started moving, not running but walking fast, using the chaos as cover. If Rock's plan was to isolate her during the riot, Maya's best chance was to get to a defensible position and wait it out. But where? Her cell was too far away, and heading there would mean crossing through the heart of the riot. Then she saw Dottie. The old woman had been released from medical 2 days ago and was near the cafeteria exit. Frozen in fear as violence erupted around her, without thinking, Maya changed direction, pushing through the chaos toward her former cellmate. Dottie! Maya grabbed her arm. We need to move now. Dottie's eyes were wide with panic. Where? They're everywhere. Maya spotted a service corridor that led to the kitchen area. It wasn't ideal, but it had fewer people and a heavy door that could be locked from the inside. This way. Stay close to me. They made it to the service corridor just as the lockdown doors started closing. Maya pulled Dottie through and slammed the heavy door shut behind them, throwing the bolt. The sound of the riot became muffled, distant. The kitchen area was empty, the staff having evacuated when the fighting started. Maya quickly scanned for exits in defensive positions. There was one door leading back to the main facility, now locked. Windows were barred and too small to escape through. If Rock's people found them here, there was only one way out and they'd have to fight through it. What's happening? Dottie asked, her voice shaking. Is this because of me? Because you saved me? This isn't your fault, Maya said, moving to the door and listening. She could hear footsteps in the corridor outside, multiple people moving with purpose. This is about control, about proving no one challenges the Vipers and survives. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Maya motioned for Dottie to hide behind a large industrial freezer, then positioned herself where she'd have the advantage when the door opened. If it opened, a voice came through the door. Maya Richardson, we know you're in there. Rock, the gang leader herself had come for this. Maya stayed silent, listening, calculating. You've got two choices, Rock continued. Come out now and face this like you've got some pride. Or stay in there and we break the door down and it gets uglier for everyone, including that old lady you're trying to protect. Maya weighed her options. The door was solid but not impenetrable. Given enough time and tools, they'd get through it. She could hold out, wait for the tactical team to restore order. But how long would that take? 20 minutes, an hour? And what would happen to Dottie if things went bad? I'm coming out, Maya called. Alone. You leave Dottie out of this. Not how this works, Rock said. We're coming in. Step back from the door. Maya heard metal scraping on metal. They had tools, probably taken from maintenance during the planned chaos. She looked at Dottie, who was crying silently behind the freezer. Whatever happens, Maya said quietly. Stay hidden. Don't come out until the guards arrive. Maya, no, Dottie whispered. There are too many of them. Maya smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I've faced worse odds. The door burst open and Rock came through first, followed by 6 other women. Maya recognized some of them from other blocks, gang members she'd never even interacted with. Rock had pulled in reinforcements, ensuring the numbers would be overwhelming. But what Rock saw stopped her cold. Maya wasn't cowering in a corner. She stood in the center of the kitchen, completely calm, hands at her sides. Her expression was the same one she'd worn before taking down JJ and her crew, like she was calculating the most efficient way to end this. 12-1, Maya said quietly. You needed 12 women to feel safe coming after me. That tell you something, Rock? Rock's jaw tightened. She was holding a metal pipe, wrapped in tape for a better grip. The others had various improvised weapons. They'd come prepared for war. It tells me you're dangerous, Rock admitted, which is why you can't be allowed to live. Can't have someone like you in here, making people think they can stand up to us. So this is about fear, Maya said. About making sure everyone stays scared of the Vipers. Fear is respect in here. You should know that. Maya's eyes went cold. You threatened my daughter. 8 years old and you sent people to scare her. That's not respect, Rock. That's cowardice. Rock's face hardened. Take her. They came at Maya from multiple angles, trying to use the confined space and their numbers to overwhelm her. But the kitchen, with its equipment and limited maneuverability, actually worked in Maya's favor. They couldn't all attack at once, and their weapons, while intimidating, required space to swing effectively. Maya moved like water, flowing between attacks, using the kitchen equipment as obstacles and weapons. A woman swung a pipe at her head. Maya ducked and the pipe hit an industrial mixer instead, the impact sending vibrations through the attacker's arms. Before she could recover, Maya swept her legs and moved to the next threat. A heavy woman tried to tackle Maya, using her size as an advantage. Maya sidestepped, guided her momentum into a stack of metal pans that came crashing down, disorienting 2 other attackers. 3 opponents neutralized in seconds. But there were still 9 more, and Maya was starting to feel the strain. She wasn't invincible. A pipe caught her shoulder, sending pain shooting down her arm. Someone grabbed her from behind, trying to lock her in place. Maya drove her elbow back, broke free, but a fist connected with her ribs, driving the air from her lungs. The fight became desperate, brutal. Maya was giving as good as she got, but the numbers were taking their toll. She took down 2 more attackers, but someone caught her leg, and she went down hard, her head bouncing off the concrete floor. Stars exploded in her vision. Through the haze, she saw Rock standing over her, pipe raised, ready to end this. Maya tried to move, but her body wasn't responding fast enough. Then Dottie's voice cut through the chaos. Stop, the guards are coming. It was a lie, a desperate attempt to buy Maya time. But in that moment of distraction, Maya saw her opening. She swept Rock's legs, caught the pipe as it fell, and surged to her feet despite the pain. The remaining attackers hesitated, seeing their leader on the ground, seeing Maya still standing despite everything. That's when the real cavalry arrived. The kitchen door burst open again, but this time it was Captain Harris leading a tactical team in full riot gear. They'd finally fought through the chaos in the main facility and tracked the sounds of fighting to the kitchen. Everyone on the ground. Now, Harris's voice boomed through the kitchen. The Vipers complied immediately, knowing that fighting correctional officers was a line even they wouldn't cross. Maya dropped the pipe and knelt, hands behind her head, blood running from a cut above her eyebrow. Harris took in the scene. 12 gang members, all breathing but several injured, one elderly woman hiding behind a freezer, and Maya Richardson in the center of it all, battered but still standing. Medical to the kitchen. Harris spoke into his radio. Multiple injuries. And someone get Warden Collins down here. She needs to see this. As the tactical team secured the area, Harris approached Maya. You all right? I've had better days, Maya said, her voice rough. But I'm alive. Dottie's okay. That's what matters. You know this is going to make your appeal situation even worse, Harris said quietly. I know. Maya looked at Rock, who was being handcuffed by one of the tactical team members. But they threatened my daughter. Once you cross that line, appeal or no appeal, I'm going to stop you. Harris nodded slowly, understanding. Before he could respond, JJ appeared at the doorway, her broken wrist now in a cast. She looked at the scene, at her fallen gang members, at Maya still standing despite the 12-to-1 odds. And then JJ did something unexpected. She pulled out a phone, one of the contraband cells the Vipers kept hidden, and held it up so Maya could see the screen. On it was a photo of Zara, Maya's daughter, walking home from school. The message was clear. They knew where she was, knew her routine, could get to her any time. Maya's expression went from exhausted to absolutely lethal. Before anyone could stop her, she moved toward JJ with speed that shouldn't have been possible given her injuries. Harris caught her, physically holding her back. Don't, he said urgently. Don't give them what they want. They have my daughter's picture, Maya said, her voice deadly quiet. They're watching my little girl. Harris's expression darkened. He turned to his team. Confiscate that phone. And J.J. Thompson, you just added federal charges to your sentence. Threatening a minor is not something we take lightly. But J.J. was smiling as they took the phone away. The damage was done. Maya now knew that no matter what happened in here, her daughter was still in danger. The Vipers had connections outside, people who could hurt Zara while Maya was locked away and helpless. As medical personnel arrived to treat the injured, Maya felt something break inside her. She'd survived the attack, had fought off 12 opponents and lived. But what did any of it matter if Zara wasn't safe? Dottie came out from behind the freezer and hugged Maya fiercely, despite the guards trying to keep everyone separated. You saved me again, the old woman whispered. And they're threatening my daughter because of it, Maya said, her voice cracking. How is that a win, Dottie? Captain Harris approached them again, this time with Warden Collins beside him. The warden looked at Maya with a mixture of respect and concern. We need to talk, Collins said. All of us, about how we're going to end this before someone dies. Maya nodded numbly, letting the guards help her to her feet. As they led her out of the kitchen, past the unconscious and injured Vipers, past Rock who stared at her with cold promise, Maya realized something fundamental had changed. She'd been fighting to stay invisible, to protect her appeal, to get back to Zara. But invisibility was no longer possible. Her appeal was probably already destroyed, and the only way to protect Zara now was to end the Viper's power completely. The war was no longer about survival. It was about making sure her daughter lived in a world where gangs like the Vipers couldn't threaten innocent children. And Maya Richardson, despite all her training, despite 12 years of special operations, had no idea how to fight a war like that from inside a prison cell. 3 days after the riot, Maya sat in Warden Collins' office with her lawyer, Vincent Chen, Captain Harris, and 2 federal investigators. Her face was still bruised from the kitchen fight, and her ribs ached with every breath. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the fear eating at her from the inside. Vincent looked like he hadn't slept in days. They have photos of Zara, photos from last week, recent ones. This isn't just talk, Maya. These people have actual surveillance on your daughter. One of the federal investigators, a woman named Agent Chen who specialized in prison gang operations, leaned forward. We've been building a case against the Vipers for 2 years. Drug trafficking, extortion, assault. But they're careful. Everything goes through intermediaries. We've never been able to connect Rock directly to anything that happens outside these walls. Until now, the other investigator added. His name was Agent Torres, and he'd been reviewing the confiscated phones from the riot. That phone JJ showed you had direct messages coordinating surveillance on your daughter. We've got Rock's fingerprints on the device from previous contraband checks, and the messages reference specific orders about your daughter that only came after you defended the elderly inmate. Maya's hands clenched into fists. Can you protect Zara? That's all I care about. We've already got a protection detail on her and your sister, Agent Chen assured her. 24-hour surveillance. Nobody's getting near that little girl. But Maya, we need your help to end this completely. How? Maya's voice was hollow. I'm locked in here with them. Warden Collins spoke up. The riot exposed cracks in the Vipers organization. 12 women participated in that attack, and several of them are from other gangs who don't have real loyalty to Rock. They joined because they were afraid or paid off, but after seeing you survive that attack, after seeing how many of their own got hurt, some of them are reconsidering. Captain Harris pulled out a folder. We've had 3 inmates approach us privately in the last 2 days. They're willing to testify about Rock's operations, about the drugs, the violence, the corruption, but they're terrified. They need to see that Rock can actually be beaten, that her power isn't absolute. They need a symbol, Maya said slowly, understanding. Someone who stood up to the Vipers and survived. More than survived, Vincent said. Maya, you took on 12 gang members in a kitchen and most of them ended up in medical. You defended an elderly woman against 5 attackers and none of them could stop you. Every inmate in this facility knows your story now. Some fear you, but others see hope. Agent Torres spread photos across the desk. We can dismantle the Vipers' outside operations, shut down their trafficking networks, cut off their supply chains. But inside Redwood, we need inmates willing to break the code of silence. We need people to stand up, and they'll only do that if they believe it's possible to win. Maya looked at each person in the room, then down at her bruised hands. What exactly are you asking me to do? Nothing, Warden Collins said firmly. We're not asking you to fight anymore, to put yourself at risk. But your appeal hearing is in 6 weeks. Your lawyer has new evidence, witnesses who are coming forward about the trafficking ring you stopped. If you win that appeal, if you walk out of here free, it sends a message that doing the right thing can actually work out. And if I lose the appeal? Maya asked quietly. The room fell silent. Vincent finally spoke, his voice gentle. Then we keep fighting. We file new appeals, we dig for more evidence. But Maya, I have to be honest with you. The prosecution is going to use the riot against you. They're going to say you're violent, unstable, a danger to society. Even though I was defending myself and Dottie, they'll argue you should have stayed in your cell, that you made choices that led to violence. Vincent rubbed his temples. It's not fair, it's not right, but that's the system we're working with. Maya stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the prison yard. She could see inmates moving in their usual patterns, groups staying separate, guards watching from towers. This had been her world for months now, and it might be her world for another 15 years. My daughter turns 9 next month, Maya said softly. She asked my sister if I'll be home for her birthday, and my sister had to tell her no, that Mommy is still away and won't be coming home for a long time. She turned back to face the room. I did what I did that night in Seattle because I saw a girl who needed help and I couldn't walk away. I defended Dottie because she was being beaten and I couldn't let it happen. And now my daughter might grow up without a mother because I couldn't stop being who I am. Agent Chen stood and approached Maya. What you are is a hero, whether the courts recognize it or not. Those 3 men you killed in Seattle, we've been investigating them for years. They were part of a trafficking network that victimized dozens of young women. You ended that, saved that girl, probably saved others they would have targeted. The system failed you, but you didn't fail. That's nice to hear, Maya said. But it doesn't change my situation. Maybe not immediately, Agent Torres said. But public opinion is shifting. The riot footage leaked somehow. He glanced at Captain Harris, who maintained a perfectly neutral expression. News outlets are covering it. People are asking why a woman who stopped traffickers is in prison, while the trafficking network continued operating. A senator in Washington is demanding an investigation. Vincent's eyes lit up. Senator Diane Martinez. Her own daughter was victimized by traffickers. She's calling for a review of your case, Maya. This could be the break we need. Over the next 3 weeks, Maya watched her story explode beyond the prison walls. News programs debated her case. Social media campaigns demanded justice. Survivors of trafficking shared their stories, saying they wished someone like Maya had been there for them. Inside Redwood, the balance of power continued to shift. Rock was in solitary confinement pending federal charges, along with JJ and several other Vipers. The gang's leadership was fractured. Inmates who'd been too afraid to speak up before were finding their courage. Dottie became something of a celebrity in D-Block. The woman Maya Richardson had risked everything to save. She told anyone who'd listen about Maya's character, about how she'd stepped in when no one else would. Maya spent most of her time in her cell, preparing for the appeal hearing with Vincent, reviewing evidence, giving depositions. But she also trained push-ups, sit-ups, meditation techniques to stay focused, because despite all the positive developments, she knew the appeal could still go either way. The hearing finally arrived on a cold morning in November. Maya was transported to the federal courthouse in handcuffs and leg shackles, wearing a suit Vincent had brought for her. The courtroom was packed with reporters, activists, and survivors. The prosecution presented their case. Maya Richardson had killed 3 men with excessive force, then had been involved in multiple violent incidents in prison, proving she was dangerous and uncontrollable. But Vincent had prepared well. He called witnesses who testified about the trafficking ring, about the young women who'd been saved when Maya disrupted the operation. He presented evidence that key testimony in her original trial had been coerced or paid for. He showed the surveillance footage of the bar that night, which had mysteriously reappeared after being lost for 3 years. And then he called Maya to the stand. "Ms. Richardson," Vincent asked, "can you tell the court what you saw that night outside the bar?" Maya spoke clearly, her military bearing evident even in chains. "I saw 3 men forcing a teenage girl into a vehicle. She was crying, trying to pull away, and they were hurting her. I recognized the signs of trafficking from my military training. We'd received extensive education on how to identify these situations. And what did you do?" I intervened. "I identified myself and told them to release her. They attacked me with weapons. I defended myself using the force necessary to stop the threat and protect the victim." "Did you intend to kill those men?" Maya was quiet for a moment. "I intended to stop them from taking that girl. I used the techniques I was trained to use in combat situations. Yes, those techniques can be lethal. But in that moment, I made the choice that I believed would save an innocent life." The prosecutor jumped up for cross-examination, trying to paint Maya as violent and unstable. He brought up the prison incidents, the injured gang members, the riot. "Ms. Richardson, you've been involved in multiple fights since entering prison. Does that not demonstrate a pattern of violence?" "It demonstrates a pattern of defending people who can't defend themselves," Maya responded calmly. "In each case, I was protecting someone from a gang attack. In each case, I used the minimum force necessary to stop the threat." "Minimum force? You broke a woman's wrist. She attacked me with a weapon. I disarmed her. The alternative was letting her stab me or continue beating a 68-year-old diabetic woman." Maya's voice remained steady. "I'm trained to assess threats and respond appropriately." Those were appropriate responses. The hearing lasted 3 days. Witnesses testified. Experts analyzed the evidence. Senator Martinez even appeared, speaking about the importance of protecting those who stand up to trafficking. Finally, Judge Raymond Peterson, a stern man in his 60s, called for final arguments. After both sides had spoken, he sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. "This is one of the most complex cases I've encountered in 30 years on the bench," Judge Peterson finally said. "On one hand, we have a defendant who killed 3 men. On the other, we have compelling evidence that those men were engaged in trafficking, that the defendant acted to save a victim, and that her original trial was compromised by suppressed evidence and coerced testimony." Maya held her breath, her heart pounding. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "the defendant's conduct in prison, while certainly involving violence, appears to have been consistently defensive in nature. She has protected vulnerable inmates at great personal cost, including jeopardizing her own appeal. This suggests character, not criminality." Judge Peterson looked directly at Maya. "Ms. Richardson, I'm overturning your conviction. The evidence clearly shows that your original trial was fundamentally flawed, and that you acted in defense of another person. "You're free to go." The courtroom erupted. Maya felt her legs go weak, had to grab the table to keep from falling. Vincent was hugging her, tears streaming down his face. Behind them, survivors and activists were cheering. The marshals removed Maya's restraints. For the first time in months, she stood without chains, but she couldn't quite believe it was real until she walked out of the courthouse and saw her sister Teresa standing on the steps, holding Zara's hand. "Mommy!" Zara ran forward and Maya dropped to her knees, catching her daughter in a fierce embrace. She was crying, shaking, holding Zara like she'd never let go. "I'm here, baby," Maya whispered. "I'm here and I'm not going anywhere." That night, Maya lay in an actual bed in Teresa's guest room, Zara asleep beside her. She couldn't stop watching her daughter breathe, couldn't quite accept that this was real. Her phone buzzed. A message from Captain Harris. "Congratulations. You deserve this. By the way, 3 more inmates came forward today. The Vipers are finished. You showed them it was possible to stand up." Another message came through. This one from an unknown number. "Thank you for saving my life." It was from the girl Maya had protected that night outside the bar, now 19 years old and in college. Maya set the phone down and pulled Zara closer. She thought about everything she'd lost, everything she'd been through. The months in prison, the fights, the fear. But she also thought about Dottie, safe now. About the inmates who'd found courage. About the girl who was alive because Maya couldn't walk away. 2 months later, Maya stood in front of a classroom full of police officers, teaching them how to recognize trafficking situations. She'd been offered book deals, speaking opportunities, consulting positions. But this work, training law enforcement to see what she'd seen, to act when others might walk away, this felt right. Dottie had been released on compassionate grounds after serving her sentence. She came to visit often, bringing cookies and telling stories that made Zara laugh. Captain Harris had become a friend, checking in regularly. Vincent had helped Maya sue the prosecutor who'd suppressed evidence. The case was ongoing, but Vincent was confident. And Rock, along with most of the Viper leadership, was facing federal charges that would keep them in prison far longer than their original sentences. On Zara's 9th birthday, Maya threw a party in Teresa's backyard. As she watched her daughter blow out the candles, surrounded by friends and family, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. She'd been a Navy SEAL, trained to fight wars. She'd become an inmate, forced to survive in a hostile environment. But now she was something else. A mother who'd made it home, a woman who'd stood up when it mattered, and someone who'd proven that doing the right thing, even at terrible cost, was still worth it. Zara ran up to her with frosting on her face. "Mommy, come play with us." Maya smiled, picked up her daughter, and realized that this, right here, was what she'd been fighting for all along. Not her freedom, not her reputation, but the chance to be present in her daughter's life, to show her by example what it meant to stand up for others. The ruthless Navy SEAL had finally found her way home. And she'd brought hope with her for everyone she'd left behind in Redwood, proving that even in the darkest places, courage could still change everything.